All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Marin Johnson, and I'm superintendent for St. Michael Albertville Public Schools. We are here and very happy that you are here with us for our first annual STMA Legislative Forum. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for joining us. And we have a lot of students, we have staff members, we have parents, we have community members, and even some students from another district that are joining us this evening. So thank you for joining us. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our legislators and staffers who are joining us this evening as well. We have a few that are joining us in person, and we have a few that are joining us virtually as well. So I'm going to switch the screen in just a minute so you can see them and they can see you. And I'll turn my laptop around. Please be patient on the technology. Those of you that work in the district or are familiar with the school district know that we really aren't equipped for this, but we're going to do the best that we can. So I'd like to review the agenda with you. So we're going to welcome, and then I will have our legislators do introductions. And then we have a number of speakers that are going to tell their stories about how our state funding and federal funding has affected them and impacted their lives in the school district. So we're going to hear from them. Each of them, we have 10, 11, 12 speakers, and they're gonna have various topics they're gonna speak about, and then we're going to transition to a Q&A with our legislators. If you have questions, there are note cards when you came in, you can jot them down, or you will have the opportunity to speak into a mic. We'll pass those around as well. To be respectful of our legislators' time, and we have a number of young students in the crowd tonight, we are going to try to have a hard stop at little after 8. So, thank you for joining us. We're going to have our legislators. We'll go back to that. We're going to have our legislators introduce themselves, and we might have a couple I noticed online that are joining us that aren't on this list. But I was at the Capitol today meeting with Senator Lucero, and I know that their meeting schedule is very busy. We are just very happy that they're here to join us. So maybe we'll have Senator Lucero, maybe if you want to start and just introduce yourself, and then we'll go to our online folks.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. When I pulled in, I saw the packed parking lot. I'm like, all right. But then I saw this morning's event, so hopefully, maybe some of them will come over. It is an honor to be the senator for this great area. For those who may not know me, we've had a lot of new construction in our community every year for a number of years here. I was the previous state representative for the last 8 years, which included this area, Albertville, St. Michael. But this last election, I ran for senator due to redistricting and a vacancy, and I'm now serving in that capacity. So just briefly, my background in terms of academics. So I presently sit on the Education Finance Committee in the Senate. In my first term in the House, I was a member of the Education Policy Committee. Personally, my academic background, when I was in high school, I open enrolled, and so I was an out-of-district student. When I was in junior and senior, I took advantage of PSEO, college-owned schools. After I graduated, I spent about 12 years in college, with multiple going through several different degrees. And then I went and taught for 7 years higher education. So I have a long experience in the educational system from multiple vantage points, and I'm very, very passionate about educational opportunities, academic excellence, and making sure that our students have those opportunities. So in my time in office, the battle for equity in education has been incredibly important. I know I've met probably many of you, whether it be at events, at the Capitol, parents, students, school board members, teachers. And by the way, what district are this group from?
Most of these are from STMA, but I believe Minnetonka.
Minnetonka, okay.
Over here.
Oh, it's over here, okay. All right, well, good. Well, thank you for coming out. And thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. This is a conversation that we need to continue to fight the battle. I will conclude with this. I have been chief authoring and co-authoring equity and education bills throughout my time. Just this session, so it was last week, it was Monday this week. The two bills I reintroduced, which were from the past, are Senate File 504 and Senate File 505. We actually had a conversation today in the office about that, and we'll continue to use those to fight for our students' future. So thank you so much again.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Josh Ortiz. I'm an outreach director in the office of U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar. And my portfolio contains, among a lot of other things, it contains education, as well as children's issues, child care, but I know we're talking education this evening, so looking forward to hearing the stories from students, staff, and teachers, so that I can take these stories and issues back to the Senator to talk about how we can help federally with the issues that I'm sure we'll hear about tonight. So thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you all. I look forward to hearing from you.
Good evening. My name is Representative Dr. Patricia Mueller from Austin, Minnesota. And you must be wondering what in the world someone from the Iowa border is doing here. Not only did I have a pleasure to serve with now Senator Lucero, but I serve on education with Representative Hudson as well. The last term, this is my second term. My last term, I was also on education. I've been a teacher for almost 20 years. I taught pretty much all over the world, actually, and then, so in my education world, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in communication arts, and communication arts, really, you can't speak right now, arts and literature education. Went on 13 years later to receive my master's in curriculum and instruction with a reading emphasis, or literacy emphasis, and then just last May, I graduated with my doctorate in education leadership. And my main passion, because I was an English teacher for a long time, is literacy and making sure that our students are reading by 3, but that we don't stop there, because literacy matters all the way through your high school career. And so I want to make sure that we have that, and also I'm very passionate about looking at our teacher preparatory programs and how we're able to create more pathways into education, create more pathways for our students so that they can have more individual education experiences, such as apprenticeships and other opportunities like that. Like Representative Sarah, I've been very passionate about education pretty much my entire life, and I have a unique experience of having been able to teach actually over in China for 3 years. And so being able to look at some of the different education systems from different countries in the world really helps me put things into perspective as we are discussing this here. So thank you for being here tonight. I know it's kind of an audible for me to be here, but I thank you for you guys for being involved and very passionate about your children's education.
Thank you, Representative Walter Hudson. It's my name. I'm a former city council member in Albertville, served a cumulative 7 years, and have just been diving into this first month as a legislator down at the Capitol, succeeding Senator Lucero in the same district that he served in. I'm a product of public education, graduated from Park Senior High in Cottage Grove in South Washington County. While I was there in high school, I was part of the PSEO program, which you may be familiar with, where it gives you an opportunity to engage in some post-secondary options while you're still going through your high school education. Found that to be very valuable. Big supporter of that program. I'm a parent of 2 sons in the district, 13 and 9, and both attend schools here in STMA. So I've got that personal stake in what happens here in this district. And one of the committees that I serve on is, they call it Children and Families now, but it used to be the Early Childhood Education Committee. So we're dealing with those early childhood education issues, which includes the scope of community education, basically anything outside of K through 12 that isn't college. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to try to bring up, I don't know why it's not showing up here. Charlie, Mackenzie, any reason why this isn't showing up? Any ideas? Remember what I said we have? Yes. Hold on a second. Uh-oh. All right, well, we have, let's see, and I can't, do you have any ideas? We have Jack Smith on, who is joining us. Oh, there we go. How am I gonna get it back? So Jack, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, Jack, can you, maybe I'll put that, we'll see if this works. Can you introduce yourself to the crowd?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Jack Smythe. I'm here on behalf of Senator Donnie Westland, who represents Senate District 42. I'm Senator Westland's legislative assistant. District 42 covers most of Plymouth, Medicine Lake, and a small part of Maple Grove. Senator Westland also serves on the Education Finance Committee with Senator Lucero. Unfortunately, she is unable to join us tonight, but she is truly honored to have been invited and eagerly awaits hearing from all of you via my notes. So, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. And I'm sorry I mispronounced your name, Mr. Smythe. Did I say it right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Melissa, how did you do this? Well, we are going to start with our speakers while Melissa helps me out. Thankfully, we have our fabulous teachers here this evening. Yeah. So we're going to start as she gets this up. We're going to have our students and our staff members come up, and our first one is going to be Miss Ella Olson. And Ella is a student here at the high school, and she will kick us off. So Miss Ella.
Good evening. My name is Ella Olson, and I'm a junior here at STMA High School. I am one of over 6,600 students from the school district. We all experienced tumultuous times in 2020 as life as we knew it seemed to unravel. The school systems have been facing several difficulties due to the pandemic, especially concerning the realm of funding. Currently, Minnesota's state funding formula has not helped schools recover from the pandemic, which in turn limits my educational opportunities and the opportunities for thousands of students within STMA school districts and all across the state. In my district, we receive $10,396 per pupil unit compared to the state average of $12,707. This results in over $15 million less per year than other school districts. Combined with the pandemic, this means fewer opportunities for me and fewer opportunities for students represented in the state. It means less art, fewer advanced classes, less music, fewer world languages, less mental health services, less intervention services, and so much more. This is not equitable, nor is it fair. Further, the impacts seen by the pandemic have also created new barriers to learning. The lack of funding has not been ignored by my school district. Our district has introduced a levy on the ballot for the past 2 years, and it has failed twice. The reason for this is quite simple. A levy disproportionately impacts my district. For example, for $1,919 per pupil operating levy, STMA taxpayers would pay $1,130 per year, while taxpayers in a neighboring district would only have to pay $291 per year. This is $839 more for the same amount of revenue. I live in a community that will likely never pass a levy. Both times that the levy failed, my school district saw a large number of teachers leave the district. Many of them left education as a whole for the private sector, and many of them left for other districts that receive much more funding that can provide for higher teacher salaries. Many of these teachers who left were extremely talented teachers who brought life into the classroom. By losing such talented teachers, this lessens the lengths of a student's education, and going into the school year, there has been a shortage of teachers. The combination of the labor market as well as not being able to provide our teachers with a desirable salary has led to higher class sizes, which makes it incredibly difficult for students to receive the help they need. Although teachers provide time both before and after school for students to receive the help necessary to succeed in a class, the teacher schedule and the student schedule that are filled with various jobs, activities, and schoolwork may not match up. Funding impacts what I can learn, how I can learn, and who I can learn from. In short, I ask that state legislators fight for future generations by increasing school funding. My generation has been on the receiving end of so many promises. We've been told since we were born that legislators will make the future better for us. Well, the future is now. My education and my access to educational and character-building opportunities are adversely impacted because my school district is not a victor in the state funding formula. We deserve the same educational opportunities that other students have, and it should not be based on our zip code. School funding sure is complicated, but students are expected to tackle complex courses every year. Every year as students, we are asked to learn and grow and to do more. We are asked to challenge ourselves. We are held accountable through our grades, our behavior, and our actions. It is imperative that state leaders are held to these same standards. Complexity and confusion should not mask the fact that not all students across our great state are getting these same educational opportunities. Minnesota can be better. Minnesota can do better. Our state funding formula can be better. Students can be better served by state leaders who take on this issue responsibly and challenge others to get a better result. Let's hold our school districts accountable by creating a level playing field in which every student has access to educational opportunities that can make a meaningful difference in how they grow, learn, and who they become. Thank you for taking the time to be here and being open to our message. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ellis. We have a tip. If I turn the volume up on my computer, which it's already at the max. All right, so next we have Brandon and Quinn Wolf, and they are from the Minnetonka School District, and they graciously drove all the way out here to share their story with us. So welcome, Brandon and Quinn.
是奎因，我去 Scenic Heights Elementary School in Minnetonka. 新年快乐！
That was my daughter Quinn. She was just introducing herself to you and also wishing you a happy Lunar New Year, which we celebrated this past weekend. So I truly appreciate this opportunity to speak to this group in regards to access to educational funding. I'm here not as a member of the STMA school district, but as a supportive family member and passionate educator. I'm fortunate to live in the Minnetonka School District and work in the Eden Prairie School District, each of whom receive a significant portion more in per pupil funding than STMA. What I know as a parent, as an educator, is that funding matters. Opportunities for greater levels of state funding allow for greater opportunity and access to vibrant educational programs. In Minnetonka, my children attend Chinese immersion school housed within a traditional elementary school. In fact, each of the 6 elementary schools in Minnetonka offer an immersion experience, whether that is Spanish or Chinese. In Eden Prairie schools, we have an entire elementary school dedicated to Spanish immersion. Our students in Eden Prairie schools enjoy access to 42 days of programming in physical education, art, language, and music in the elementary schools. This is similar to the access of specials, as we call them, in the Minnetonka School District as well. Further, Minnetonka High School recently opened a state-of-the-art science and STEM lab that more rivals those of universities than other high schools. In Eden Prairie, we are able to consistently attract teachers from their existing school districts as a result of more competitive pay. In both these districts, we are fortunate to offer low student-to-teacher ratios, ensuring that students have an individualized learning experience that meets their needs. All of these things are about delivering the best possible educational experience to each student. That's the drive. But each is possible because of access to educational funding. Simply put, funding matters. The question at hand about our state and about the experience of STMA is whether we are at peace knowing that across our state, the educational experiences of students vary widely, and that districts' ability to deliver those experiences is tied to the funding they receive. I know that I am not at peace with that. I know that I do not envision a Minnesota where educational experience is a direct result of your zip code. My hope is that those with power seek to disrupt this current reality, understanding that all deserve the opportunity to access world-class educational experiences and know that funding matters. Thank you.
All right, thank you to Brandon and Quick. Next we have Jamal Barfor. He is a senior at the high school, and I heard Jamal speak at the Superintendent Student Forum last week and was very impressed with his thoughts and asked him to join us. So thanks for joining us, Jamal.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamal Barfor. I'm a senior here at STMA. I'm just here to speak about the urgent need for funding at our school. I'm speaking as a student who's gone throughout all my levels of education and school and career through STMA. Hence, I just wanted to share my 12 years of experience with you all. As you may know, STMA has been facing a number of challenges in the recent years. We've seen a significant increase in enrollment, but our funding has not kept the same pace. Not only has this brought overcrowded classroom sizes, but also a shortage of resources and lack of support for our teachers and staff. The lack of funding has been having a negative impact on our education, and I sometimes will often hear talk about cutting certain extracurricular activities, for example. And I can only imagine how a student who looks forward to that part of the day, or it could be an escape for them, that their program could be cut without them having any help to do anything about it. These extracurricular activities and the extra staff help build important skills and relationships to help them get an interest in what they love. STMA is ranked second in athletics in Minnesota, 9th best school districts in Minnesota, and placed in the top 10 for places to teach at, but it seems that we rank in the bottom half when it comes to funding. Despite not passing these last few levies and these other challenges, our teachers and staff have done an excellent job of what they have. But the truth is that we and they, as they and we as students, need more support to ensure that excellence stays our tradition. There was a teacher I grew close with. His name was Mr. Arlene. He's no longer at STMA. He was my homeroom teacher for the first 3 years. And him not being here for this last year hits me because he was one of those teachers who really care about your education and your schooling, but he also very cares a lot about how you develop as a person. Since he's no longer here at school, I'm not able to tell him about the colleges I've gotten accepted into, some of the ones I haven't been accepted into, and the amount of opportunities I've gained off his advice. I say this because there's plenty of amazing staff here, but of course we want to be able to see them here while we're here. If excellence is our tradition, we must be able to retain excellent teachers. I truly do urge anyone who can take action and increase funding for our district and school to do so. Investing in education is an investment in the future of our community and our country. The students of STMA deserve the best possible education, and with your support, we can make it a reality. May God bless you guys, and thank you for listening.
Now we have Miss Mary Spalding. Mary was a teacher at Fieldstone Elementary, but is no longer with the district. But she will tell you her story. Oh, absolutely.
I didn't practice with the light. Oh, is it better? Okay. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mary Spalding, and I've been an educator for the last 17 years. For the last 8 years, I worked in the St. Michael Albertville School District as an elementary reading specialist. Last year, I made the difficult decision to leave my career as an educator. While there were various reasons for making this decision, tonight I would like to discuss the reasons why the lack of funding accelerated my decision to leave. As our district's funding issues become more apparent each year, Educators are asked to take on more responsibilities than ever. The lack of funding has created situations where the district has had to be creative on how to cover positions and provide support. During COVID, I shifted into a third grade classroom on short notice to keep our numbers down and to keep our students where they belong, in school. Dozens of times I've been pulled to cover classrooms or open positions. Every time I was pulled to cover a position, the students with the highest needs in reading missed out on much needed interventions. Everything that was asked of me, I did, and more, to ensure a successful learning environment for all students. I gave until I had nothing left to give. And I'm not the only one. Quality educators are going to continue to recognize their worth and recognize there is more to life than putting your heart and soul into a system that continually raises the bar of what excellence looks like without providing the resources and manpower needed to make it happen. And then what? What happens to our children? The lack of funding over the years has also had a significant impact on our class sizes. As the number of students per teacher increases, so do the number of students coming to school with trauma, learning difficulties, and severe behavioral needs. These children need an adult that is given the resources to help each and every one of them succeed. You see, it's great to have banners and missions professing equal education for all, but without the resources to make it happen, those words are just lip service. I can appreciate the arduous task of school funding, and there has to be a better way to distribute the funds. Our students and educators deserve better. Educators are in dire need of resources, including proper mental health support for their students, family systems support, and greater numbers of qualified individuals to help meet the needs of the various concerns that are crossing our doorways each day, and mandates that come with the funding required to put them in action. Another suggestion is to take a look at a statewide class size cap. This could mean when average class size hit the cap, more funding would be provided to reduce the load of students per teacher. Now, more than ever, students need safe spaces with adults they can trust and depend on. These relationships are what drive students' motivation to learn and grow. I'm asking you, as lawmakers, to help fix this broken system. Help find ways to make school funding more equitable across the state. Help these educators by setting up an environment that is conducive to learning, which requires a closer look at the number of students per class, giving them time to adapt and adjust instruction to the unique needs of each of those learners, and resources to meet those needs of all the students. In closing, I would like to end with a quote from Nelson Mandela. He states, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." What are we doing as a society to arm each and every one of our children with the education they need to change the world? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spalding. Next, we have grade 4 student Sophia Holmes.
Hi, my name is Sophia Holmes, and I'm in 4th grade at Palestone Elementary. I'm a member of Student Council and Safety Patrol. I was also in high potential programs last year and this year. These classes were my favorite part of the day at school. Last year we had 60 minutes of advanced reading for advanced reading. This year it was cut in half, so we only have 30 minutes. The way it affected us is we don't get to do word masters, which is a system where we each get assigned one word and we present it to the class. We also don't do word of the day, which is where we learn 3 words each week, study them, and then get tested on them. Both of these things helped us expand our vocabulary. Now we only get to share a few things of our thinking tool icons in our book, and when we are done sharing, we read for a few more minutes. Not having those extra activities makes school more boring because I like doing that stuff. The class sizes have also become very big. Now we have 30 to 35 students, but a few years ago we had 20 to 25 students. Having so much kids in makes our room and desk crammed together. Also, last year, since the classes were so big, just like this year, my teacher, Mrs. Hackett, couldn't always help all the students at the same time. So I would try to help the students around me because I usually finish my work early. I wish we could have smaller class sizes and get more time for advanced reading, because then we could do those extra activities and it would make reading more fun. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Sophia. Next, we have middle schooler Rhys Miller.
Hello, my name is Rhys Miller, and I'm a 6th grader at STMA. I want to thank you all for your time and willingness to help us with funding for our schools. I really like going to school, and I often beg my parents to bring me to school earlier instead of the bus because I enjoy time there. When I walk into the building, there's a staff member to greet me, breakfast available, and friends to talk with. I'm only 11 years old, and I'm in 6th grade, but I've noticed that school has changed at STMA. I used to have smaller classes, and I used to get more time with teachers, and if I have a question in class, it takes a lot longer for the teacher to get to me, because there's a lot more kids in the room. The more students we have in classes, the more distractions there are, and it's really hard to stay focused. School is important to me and my family, and I try to do my best, but when there are more kids and more distractions, it takes away from my learning. My teachers have been great at filling in the gaps and meeting with me before school when we need it, but I can't help but hope that next year we will have smaller classes and smaller gaps. Thank you for being here tonight, and I hope you can make some positive changes so I can get more help and have more time with teachers.
Next, we have Mrs. Hackett. Mrs. Heidi Hackett is a teacher at Fieldstone, and she brought some props, some of her students, and we are going to try to get another presentation that she made up to. All right, I'll turn the mic over to Miss Heidi Hackett.
Hi, my name is Heidi Hackett. I have been a teacher within the STMA district for 21 years. 11 in special, I know, I saw your face, you went, ooh, right? 21 years. 11 in special ed, 10 in 3rd grade, and I'm currently teaching 1st grade. I'm fortunate enough to have some of my students from last year, look at these beautiful kids, join me, so thanks for coming. And my 2 kids way at the end, thanks for coming too. I'm extremely nervous because the last time I spoke in front of a group of people, I literally tipped over the podium. And I'm not kidding, you can ask Mr. Murfield, he won't make eye contact with me yet because it happened in a class I had with him. So whoever's sitting down there, be careful. So I'm here tonight because I want others to see how inequitable funding has affected my students within the STMA district. So if you look up here, it says, the U.S. Department of Education's mission is to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. Now, what I'm going to show you, I'm not sure if you guys can go ahead and turn around and check this out. I'm a visual learner. So this is from 2015. My class that I had in 3rd grade. The second picture is the class that I had last year. Now, as you can see, I'm missing half of my class. Do you guys see yourselves on there? Sorry, I had to blur your faces out. But, so this is the class that I had last year. So I went from 23 kids to 32 kids. Look at that. Look at all those kids. Zoller Photography didn't know how to add in any more spaces. That's the best they could do right there. Next, I want to show you a picture in a classroom. This is a picture representing my class from 2015. Oh, look, I can look right here. That's fun. 2015, that's a class of 23 kids. And then this is a class with 32 kids, what I had last year. Now, I want you to see, there are 2 kids on the corner side. I couldn't even get in the picture. My back was all the way to the wall. So, again, 23 to 32 kids. A lot of these kids were in that class. Sophia was in my class. She did have to help out. I needed help. I could not help out with these kids. Thank you, Sophia. Next, look at this. This is 32 kids raising their hands saying they need help. And I'm one person. 32 kids. And again, you can't see the kids on the side. I could not go back any further. So, what does this mean? When you look at this picture, all of these kids, I have a big list, are you ready? All of these kids come to school and they have certain needs such as speech and language disorders. Now, literally, almost all of the things that are listed on here were in my classes that I've had within the last couple of years. Speech and language disorders, they've been diagnosed with developmentally, cognitively delayed, emotional behavioral disorders, autism, specific learning disabilities, other health impairments, ADD, ADHD, divorce, they're experiencing depression, parents that have lost their jobs, parents that are working more than one job, parents that are working at night, neglect, abuse. Now, that's a lot. Does this have like a kitty taser on there? The pink is what my job is to implement. I'm in charge of health plans. Do you know how many times I have the EpiPen the wrong way? Like, that's scary. Like, I'm in charge of health plans. I'm in charge of communicating with parents, making sure I have newsletters, seesaw, conferences, court, making sure I'm implementing court order paperwork. I'm doing academic interventions. I'm differentiating instruction. I'm on committees for a lot of different needs. I'm emailing. There's phone calls. There's staff meetings, PLC meetings, elementary conference committee. I'm on a committee for that. Trying to make change, trying to make things better. And in addition, we're making sure that kids have snacks. Kids have resources for classes. They have winter boots. They have snow pants. It's a lot. But in addition, this is can you see this big binder? Look out down there, kids. Heads up. This is the Minnesota State Standards. This is what I'm in charge of teaching. Social science, health, math, listening and speaking skills. I'm supposed to teach all of this. My coworkers don't know I put that picture up. It's from about 8 years ago. We're tired. We're exhausted. Like we said, a lot of people are looking to go elsewhere. And it's not funny. Now, I do want to say this. I'm going to get my notes because I don't want to mess up on this. When you look at the blue outline, that is our STMA boundaries. The STMA boundaries, with my kids right there, I have a picture of Griffin and Marley and where we live approximately. Now, if we would go to, well, this is what I figured out. In STMA, we have approximately 6,000 kids. I took STMA's per pupil funding amount that's allocated by the state, and I multiplied it by 6,000, our approximate number of kids. And then, what I did is, I did the same for our neighboring districts. I did Monticello, Buffalo, and Elk River, and I found the difference of funding based on the same number of students. Monticello would receive $4,596,000 additional dollars, and they are 4 miles from my house. My husband was a principal there, and why? Why would I not take my kids where? I mean, seriously, $4 million. Buffalo would receive $9,306,000 additional dollars, and Buffalo is only 5 miles away from my house. That's not okay. And Elk River, that's not okay. Elk River has $13,806,000 additional dollars, and they are 1 mile away. Now, you kids, don't leave our district and go there, okay? You stay here. But what I'm saying is, that's not very far, and that's not okay. Why? Why is it different? So, when you look up here, all kids, my class. Oh no, someone's gonna have to read it, getting choked up. All kids deserve support. This happened a lot last year, you guys remember? When I got choked up, you'd have to read. That's part of funny.
Funding should not be determined by where their parents choose to live.
Oh, you're doing good.
Children should not be penalized for choosing to live in the STMA community. Please help STMA students by fixing this disparity and living up to the United States Department of Education's mission statement.
So next we have Marin Johnson. Marin is a 4th grade student. So, Marin, sorry.
Thank you, members of the Minnesota State Legislature, for allowing me to talk to you tonight. My name is Marin Johnson, and I'm a 4th grade student at Fieldstone Elementary here in St. Michael, Alberta. Last week, I read 1,020 minutes, mostly because I'm deeply into a Harry Potter book that is getting pretty exciting. So I'm guessing that gives you the idea that I love to read, which is true. It is one of my most favorite things to do outside of school. I've been in high potential language arts for the past 2 years, but this year things have been a little different. My class has gone from 60 to 30 minutes per day, which means I don't get to spend a lot of time with my teacher working on the things I need help with. I'm lucky though because my mom works with me after school on the things I don't have time to master in class. But I know that many of my classmates aren't as fortunate. All of this has me worried that students like me at STMA will keep seeing class cuts with fewer teachers and bigger class sizes as we get older. Even though I'm only in 4th grade, I know those aren't good things for my future. I am here tonight to ask all of you to give myself and my classmates the same chance as other students in Minnesota to learn more about the subjects we really love and to become people who can change the world. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, Marin. Next we have Miss Dana Nordberg. Dana is a teacher at STMA, St. Michael Elementary.
With academically talented students since the 90s, yes, the 90s. And in the last 10 years, I have served as the high potential teacher at St. Michael Elementary. However, due to the pandemic and due to funding, I was switched from a high potential teacher mid-year to a 4th grade teacher, now back to a high potential teacher, now back to a 4th grade teacher who also has to meet the needs of all the high potential students in the classroom. And the reason why I get choked up about this is because I can tell you all day about the academic needs of these high potential kids or talented, gifted kids, like being in the zone of proximal development. If they are not in the zone, they are not going to learn. They're not going to be engaged. And oftentimes they're seen as behavior issues, high activity, low attention rate. Every year I get parents and students who say, wow, I finally fit in. I found out where I belong. Parents who struggle with behavior issues, teachers have said, this is a behavior child, gets into the class and they find out they're engaged in learning. They're excited to learn. They're excited to be there. They're going home and doing class for the first time. Not only does having a high potential position help the academically gifted students, but it also helps reduce classroom sizes during math and reading for the regular teacher, allowing regular teachers to spend more time with those kids. It also allows for students who maybe aren't academically talented, and when those kids are pulled out, a regular child gets an opportunity to be a leader in academics and not always be overtaken in the classroom. Our district is trying to focus on not just the low end but the high end, but every child, because every child matters. Now I can tell you all day about the academics, but what scares me more is the emotional and mental health of these students. Studies show, and this is pre-pandemic, that 25% of gifted students suffer anxiety or issues, 25% more than the regular education students. I see this every day of kids feeling solitude, they feel isolated, they feel alone, they suffer from anxiety, depression, and having these classes allow kids to connect with like-minded peers. They get to know people and form deeper friendships. And it also allows these students to take on challenges that they maybe never experienced and recognize failure and develop a growth mindset. It scares me though, not just about the academics, not about the growth mindset, but the emotional and mental health of these students. I have had students come in and say, I never fit in, I never belong. And all of a sudden, now I have kids who I've taught, who are in college, who text me pictures. They send me emails of pictures in groups and say, wow, because of these classes, I've formed lifelong friends. The other day, I was talking to one of my students who've had for a while, and I pulled out a poem that they had written before they were in a high potential class. And it tears me up because the gist of the poem, some of the lines were like, I wish someone could see me. I wish someone knew what it felt like to be so alone. And without equal funding, we can't have those opportunities for our kids, and I worry about the mental health. Since the pandemic, we've all worried about the mental health, and this is one way with equal funding that we can make a difference for our kids. So thank you for letting us talk.
Thank you. And now we have Seth and Jen Wright. Seth is a student at STMA High School in grade 10, and Jen is his parent, is his mother.
Hi, I am Seth, president of choir. I'm in broadcasting. I'm an athlete. Sports are too expensive. I miss my peers and my teachers that are gone. This year, I must not speak. I need speech for broadcasting. Please fund our schools.
Serving as co-chair of the Special Education Advisory Council. We've raised 4 children in this district, Seth being our youngest. We believe in this district. We're fortunate to have a special team of STMA at STMA. They desire to see Seth live a meaningful and fulfilled life in our community. This team consists of special education coordinators, paras, teachers, general education teachers, occupational, physical, cognitive and speech therapists, social workers, county officers, coaches, and student peers. As a result of the district's dire financial situation, the means to sustain Seth's team is increasingly challenging. Some of our finest staff have been let go. Some have left to find a more sustainable wage. Many of the staff who remain are burdened with unmanageable class sizes. We've been grateful for the opportunities Seth has had at STMA. The choral program surrounds Seth with a stellar community of peer students who encourage him and include him, even elected him as an officer. He is the president of the choir. Seth is part of the broadcasting program. He was able to serve as a news anchor, providing visibility, bringing him acceptance to the greater school community. Seth is an STMA athlete. Last year, he participated in the high school wrestling program and in adaptive bowling. As a wrestler, Seth was able to develop strength and speed and coordination. In competition, he was met with acceptance and respect by all of his opponents. Most importantly, he was a part of a brotherhood, sisterhood of athletes and managers. In bowling, he went to the Minnesota State High School League State Championship, placing 7th. With fees increasing by 50% this school year, Seth was not able to participate in wrestling. He has missed his wrestling community this year. With the current financial state of the STMA district, the opportunities for Seth are dwindling. Our team is in jeopardy. The prospect of losing speech therapy in the beginning of the school year was devastating. Communication is crucial for Seth and students like him. It enables Seth to convey his needs to others and advocate for himself. It enables him to be a participant in our community and in the state of Minnesota. In the last few years, we have seen our state moving backward in opportunities for our young residents, especially the vulnerable. I believe we can reverse this trend if we fully fund education. Please utilize the surplus to support STMA. It's critical for the future of the district and the community and the state. Thank you.
All right, last but certainly not least, we have senior here at the high school, Taylor Jeffrey.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Taylor Jeffrey. I'm a senior at STMA High School. Some activities that I participate in are the STMA Concert Choir, Chamber Choir, Theater, Student Council, NHS, PSEO program, and I've been a student athlete. The St. Michael Albertville School District prides themselves on academics, athletics, and the arts. 3 years ago, I would have known close to nothing about how money was allocated to the school districts. Throughout the past few years, I have seen and felt the effects of the budget cuts, low funding formula, and the unequal distribution of money to our schools. From an athletic perspective, I played on the STMA High School soccer team. Soccer gave me great friendships, important lessons, and a team I called family. What would have been my junior season was cut short. I was no longer offered a spot on the team due to the district not being able to fund an additional team and coach. Other surrounding schools were able to support extra teams to offer close to all of their athletes a playing position. Where I feel most at home is in the STMA arts programs. I have really enjoyed being a part of this STMA concert choir, but with the low funding, our program has had to change. A few years ago, the program had over 300 students with 2 full-time choir directors for each choir. Last year, the number of students remained the same, while left with only 1 director. From the academic standpoint, my regular classrooms were filled to the brim with desks. The unequal ratios in the classroom made learning more challenging. I felt that I had a harder time getting one-on-one attention. Hands-on labs and activities were much more difficult to complete due to sharing materials and among large groups, and it felt as though my voice was not heard as much as it could have been during class time discussions. The rise in classroom numbers has been straining on our teachers as well. Being expected to show the same amount of attention or help to each and every student within an hour-long class is near impossible. Another significant change is the rise in activity fees. My family has experienced more financial difficulty keeping us involved with the activities we love. The increase in costs made trying new things and being involved in high school activities less accessible. While I am no longer playing soccer for STMA, my brother joined the freshman team this fall. Fees for his soccer program more than doubled. My musical theater cost increased over $100 compared to the previous year. Having to pay for several different activities really adds up. The inequity between districts across the state of Minnesota has a real impact among students and families. Everyone is experiencing financial difficulties right now, but the unfair funding for our schools increases that burdens on families with students. Education is the foundation for all. and we need to protect and support our students. I will use my voice to fight for a more equitable future of funding for Minnesota education. STMA holds pride for its academics, arts, and athletics. And for our students to continue to be successful, we need to be equally supported. Thank you.
So thank you to everyone that was brave and came up and shared their very heartfelt stories. And you can see that this is a real thing, and I'm betting that's why most of you are here. This is something, we could go on for literally days, and we hear these stories all the time from our primary all the way up through our high school, actually age 21. So thank you for everybody for coming out tonight to share your stories with this group. We appreciate it. So let's start with the Q&A portion. So we have note cards that you were given if you wanted one when you came in the room, or you are invited to come up and actually use the mic to ask your question. And so we'll start that portion. We have a number of our legislative advocacy team here with us this evening. Tara and Mary are standing up and they can take your note card or they can bring you the mic. So raise your hand if you'd like to give a note card or have a comment or a question for our legislators or the one joining us online.
What's going to change it? What's it going to take? It's simple. What can we do?
Did you hear that? Legislators, did you hear that? What's going to change it? What can we do?
Yeah, the question was what's going to change it? And given my level of experience in the legislature, I'm at least qualified to answer the question, but I can provide some insight. I remember the first time I attended a C presentation. Many of you have probably seen the pizza video. Can I see head nods if people have seen the pizza video? I've been watching that pizza video for 10 years, which was just about the time, a little bit less than the time when I first moved into this community, and long before I was engaged in any sort of public service. It hasn't changed for at least that long, for a variety of reasons. Unfortunately, I think one of those key reasons has just been politics and the divided legislature and the complications that that has presented in previous sessions. We have uniform trifecta, one-party control of government now. We have a governor who released his priorities, his budget today. I've not had an opportunity to look at what he has proposed, but his previous comments, including his inaugural address, which I attended, committed to what he's calling fully funding education. So I would like to imagine that it's going to change this year. The question becomes to what degree and what form that will take. I know that, as Senator Lucero mentioned, he has 2 bills that he's authored and that I'm going to be carrying in the House that provide for a minimum revenue for school districts across the board. And in addition to that, provides new state aid for districts like ours that operate under the burden of being what's called property poor, which I'm sure many of you understand what I'm talking about when it comes to the lack of commercial and industrial property for a tax base. And so, after this many years of watching the same video and hearing people say they're committed to change, I know it's difficult to accept yet another commitment to do something, but the circumstances have changed, and I would expect that we are going to see finally a change in the educational formula.
Thank you. So I'd like to kind of piggyback on Representative Hudson. He talked about how the governor sent out his proposal about what he's calling fully funded. I'm looking at your legislative platform here, and I don't know if everyone has seen this or looked at it. It's something we have as legislators, and you have on here increase the basic formula by 5%, index it to inflation. The governor's proposal was 4% in this biennium and 2% in the next biennium. So according to what you're saying here, the governor is not fully funding education. And I would really like to just kind of talk about what that means to fully fund education, because we know that giving money is very important. Giving money that you can use is another question, because we often have, as legislators, we need to get more money, we need more money, we need more money. I've met with Education Minnesota, one of the few on my side of the aisle who are willing to do that, and it's because I'm a former teacher, and I know we are caught, who said this? Mary Spalding, you were amazing. Where did you say? It's hard to put your life in a system that demands more but doesn't provide the resources. The system, right? In the budget that we look at as legislators, you look at all this extra money, but much of it is tied up in other initiatives that don't go to your students or your classroom. So what we need to do is make sure, and one of your priorities here is local control. We need to put it on the basic aid so that you can use it and you can put it towards your classrooms, your teachers, your resources, because the state is telling you how you need to spend your money right now. And so that's what changes it. Changes is how it's unrestricted so that you can use it in the community, that you know what's best for your students and your resources. And I'd like to say one more thing, and then I'll move it on to Senator Lucero or Mr. Ortiz here. We can't expect, I was a teacher for a long time. I'm the one who kept snacks in her drawer. I'm the one that offered to get a brain break, get brain food. Oh my goodness, your parents are going through a divorce. I get it. I was that teacher that students came and talked to. We cannot expect our students to, or our schools to do it all. And we need to recognize that one of the ways that we can support you is to give you the flexibility to partner with your communities and to be able to bring in mental health resources, bring in other community resources to help meet the needs of your students. Because teachers, I hear you. You cannot do it all, nor should you be expected to. So, if you have any more questions, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for the presentations and the comments. I am very impressed. Thank you so much for the parents. Thank you so much for the students. Thank you so much for the teachers. You work so hard and are so incredible, giving so much of yourself to help our children. To the question, what's it going to take? I think Representative Mueller said it the best. There are multiple categories, and I'm sure most in this room are already familiar. The educational funding formula. There's a base, and then there's a series of categories. And it's the sum of the base and all those categories that determines what a school district gets. And based on those categories, those dollars can be limited. And so the focus needs to be on the base. Now we've heard just in the first 3.5 weeks here of the legislative session in the Senate Finance Committee, Education Finance Committee, a bill that picked 4 of those categories and is targeting funding at those 4 categories. When I looked at the runs are what is the result of throwing X number of dollars onto the existing formula in each of those categories, what will all of the approximately 330 school districts receive? And unfortunately, the bill that we heard, I think it was Thursday of last week, STMA was near the bottom. So the solution needs to be not continuing to throw more dollars on an existing broken formula. So the proposal of 4%, I haven't seen the details, but 4%, 2%?
2% details, 4, and 2.
Okay, 4 and 2. 4 and 2. So taking the existing dollars that is spent statewide in education, increasing them by 4% in the first year, year, increasing them by 2% in the second year, and putting those dollars onto the same formula is going to result in the gap widening. So we need to focus on revamping the formula. That's the solution. What is the appetite to revamping the formula? Unfortunately, it is very challenging because I'm a senator and I have 8 school districts or so. So there's one and one senator for the entirety of STMA. But Minneapolis-St. Paul, obviously, as you get more concentrated in population, they have, whereas STMA has one senator in the legislature. Minneapolis and St. Paul, I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but it's approximately, I'm going to say 8 to 10. And so there needs to be a recognition that there is an inequity and that all students matter regardless of the zip code. And I completely get Minneapolis-St. Paul has unique challenges that other school districts across the state don't. And we need to account for that. But the present formula is not working and it's depriving our district of those opportunities. And it just pains me to hear the class sizes, the programs being dropped, the teachers leaving for other school districts. It's painful to hear that because it doesn't need to be that way. And again, just throwing more dollars at the existing formula, it's going to give more dollars to STMA, but it's going to, again, widen that gap, which is not a long-term solution. So hopefully that is the what and how. The question is, we need to get the appetite from enough legislators to support that.
Thank you to our legislators. Another question? We have time for maybe one more. Yes, in the back.
How do we do that? How do we stay in this classroom, in this auditorium, surrounded by a community of people that do not support us? How do we help?
So the question was, in case you didn't hear, and to our online friends, how do we do that? You know, an audience full of people that want to advocate, students that want to advocate. How do we change the formula? How do we change it so we don't have these stories a repeat of next year?
Well, it's the persuading legislators to support legislation. After having not received bill hearings on these bills in committee the last 4 years that I was in the House of Representatives, I took those bills, converted them to amendments, and I offered them on the House floor. So the very bills that were not given bill hearings, I offered as amendments. Now, by the way, how you get support, or how you build that coalition, is you get support from fellow legislators. So STMA is not alone in this gap in the funding inequity. So I have been working for years. Many of these bills I reintroduce every legislative session, and I've gone around. I've got the list of school districts that are at the bottom consistently, and I was the chief author, received support as co-authors, bipartisan support. So a number of Democrats and Republicans co-authoring the same bill, which was going to provide support for their school district and bring in additional dollars. So when I offer that exact same bill as an amendment on the floor, and those very co-authors that are on the bill vote against the amendment, it's really frustrating. Really frustrating. So it's what if I had the answer on how to get them to support the legislation they're a co-author of, I would do that in a snap. So I'm at a loss for words on how to get people to support legislation that's going to benefit their own district.
I would say that, I'll tread lightly on how I say this. I would say that there are people who have a vested interest in keeping the system the same. Can I say that out loud here? Can I say that out loud here? There are people who have vested interest in keeping it the same. And what made me a teacher that got, I was nominated as Teacher of the Year in my district 2 years in a row, is that you think outside the box. You think differently. You do differently. And we have people who have a vested interest in keeping the system the same. So you have to find those interest groups and make sure that they understand, because those interest groups are powerful and legislators listen to those interest groups. So.
Yeah, it's a difficult lift simply because, as has been articulated, the bulk of the influence and just the number of representation legislatively really favors the metro. And on top of that, I heard a lot of talk today, and always hear a lot of talk around this issue using words like equity. What you need to understand is, equity does not mean the same thing to you and me and all of us up here that it does to the folks in St. Paul who are making these decisions. They would tell you that their current funding formula is equitable. They would tell you that all those categoricals that Senator Lucero was talking about make the system equitable. The whole point, from their perspective, is to give more money to people who have greater need. That's what the categoricals are for. And so if really what we do need to do, to Senator Lucero's point, is fundamentally rethink the way we do school funding. And there have been a fair number of ideas that have been tossed around. One that I like, I'm not married to, but think that it's a good place to start having a conversation about, is the idea of having uniform level pupil funding across the entire state, and then providing, if you want to have a way of funding these special needs, these special categoricals, then finding a way to do something similar to what our bills do, that provides state aid with local participation that's voted upon to provide for those categorical needs. That way, the people who live in particular communities can decide what you want to fund, what's important to you, what's the dollar amount that will work for you, and you use a certain degree of state aid in order to leverage that, so that it's not so much harder to do it in STMA as it is to do it in Minnetonka or Monticello or Elk River or wherever. That's an idea that's yet to be fleshed out, but we are thinking about these things. The challenge is going to be overcoming that monopoly, that ideological monopoly, frankly, that is at the core of how Minnesota does education currently.
All right, maybe one more quick question before we wrap it up. Thank you. Mary.
Yeah. I'm sitting here listening to all of this, and we've been talking about the formula here in STMA for a very long time, and it sounds like there really aren't answers right now. And the reason we're all sitting in this room is because we're really hurting. The last 2 years have been very difficult, and we're just getting by. We're looking at money on the Finance Advisory Committee, and can we save a teacher? Can we bring one job back? So we really are in need now. So to switch gears a little bit, the other thing that keeps coming up that I notice is the special education cross-subsidy, which is a huge need, not just for our district, but I would assume all districts in the state of Minnesota. With the surplus of money that our state has, I am curious to know, and I really hope this is currently being talked about in your conversations now that the session has started. This is, I think, about over $4 million out of our general fund that we have to pay for these mandates that are very important for our students, but it continues to hurt our finances in our district year after year after year, and it's not just us. This would be a state concern. You know, I'm curious to know what's being talked about right now. We're hopeful in this area. To fix that formula is lovely and wonderful, and you know, not to do something to just widen the gap, but special education that's a lot of money for a lot of districts right now. So what's happening with that?
Well, thank you for that. That is a fantastic question that we can actually help get.
I'm so glad he's here today.
The special education funding gap is something that's going to be resolved, hopefully with a partnership with the federal government and federal funding. Because the mandates have come down, obviously that's where the genesis is, and unfortunately hasn't been funded. I will say, before I turn the microphone over, I will say not a day, or I should say at least a week, I shouldn't say a day has gone by, but at least one committee meeting per week thus far in the legislative session in the Education Senate Finance Committee. We, meaning myself and my colleagues on my side of the aisle, have brought up the issue of prioritizing the special education cross-subsidy. That is a priority for us, not only in the future budget, which will be coming out starting July 1st, but in the supplementary education spending bill that would go into effect immediately. And so we're continuing to highlight that, bring that to the forefront, because that is a priority, and it is certainly one where there is bipartisan support.
I think from the federal side and the senator's office, my plan here obviously is to once again take these stories that we've heard tonight around the loss of special education programs, or the threat of losing other programs in the district because of the requirement to fund special education. Take those stories to our legislative team and also the senator to figure out, what are some ways forward on how the federal government can fulfill their promise to fund special education. So, I don't have an answer for you right now on how that's going to happen, but part of the reason why I am here and why I come to these is so that I can continue to share your stories. It's my job to share your stories with the senator and with our legislative team, who then obviously are trying to create partners in Congress to do what the federal government is promised to do here.
And I would just add very quickly, and when the idea was enacted, it was a mandate by the federal government with the promise that they would pay, do you remember how much? 40%. They were going to pay 40% of it. You know how much the federal government has ever paid for it? 12%. So that puts a heavy burden on us in Minnesota, all right? So when we talk about fully funding the special education cross-subsidy, it requires you to put a lot of effort on convincing your legislators to fulfill their promise of putting their funding, directing and targeting their funding to what they promised to do. We on this side are required to, whatever that gap is, something that I have been very passionate about. Special education teachers are saints and amazing and do so much, and I am consistently amazed at the work you do, because that was not my job, and I am amazed at the things that you do. But I also know, because I've subbed in special education classrooms, that the amount of forms that a special education teacher has to fill out sometimes is upward to 300 pages in forms. So what I would like to see is, let's increase the funding so that we don't have such a burden on our schools. Let's put some pressure on the federal government to make sure they fulfill their promise. But let's also figure out in statute how we can streamline the paperwork so our special education teachers can actually, teach.
I'll just add, because I think the point that you make is a very important one, which is there are different levels of the problem, and once you get to a certain point, the level of urgency justifies action that you might not otherwise take. So, by way of analogy, nobody wants to dip into their retirement funds because you get penalized very heavily for doing so. But if your circumstances become such that it's dire enough that you're not gonna be able to pay your mortgage or put food on the table, you're gonna take that hit, even though generally speaking, it's not a good idea to do so. It may be that we're at that point with the cross-subsidy. Funding the cross-subsidy, which I do believe would be bailing out the federal government from a promise that they haven't kept, might nonetheless be something we need to do simply because of the level of urgency that this district and other districts of the state are facing. So that's something that I am open to, and if it comes up, I'll be taking that proposal very seriously, because the idea, one thing that annoys me and bugs me, especially from having served on the city council, is unfunded mandates. You know, the idea that some higher level of government is going to tell you, you got to do this thing, have fun paying for it. Providing people with the opportunity to go around and claim that they've done something that they actually haven't, because to do it would be to resource it. But we might have to take the hit for promises that were made at a higher level of government just to ensure that our district stays afloat.
Just going to add one note. Representative Mueller brought up the paperwork, the special education, up to 300 pages. That is also something we've brought up and had conversations. How can we reduce that duplicative paperwork and allow those teachers to spend more time teaching? And in fact, the meeting we had today with the commissioner, that topic was also brought up. Yes. And I forget what his exact words were, but something to the effect of, we are working to make real changes in that area, something like that.
He was very supportive of it. So I want to thank our legislators for joining us this evening, and Mr. Ortiz as well, and then Mr. Smythe, and then also Congressman Emmer's staffer is here. Stacy Morris is here. Maybe give a shout or a wave. So thank you. I want to be just a couple quick things before we leave, because I heard and I saw on your faces, I read your body language, you want to know what you can do, and you're probably angry. I have to have kickboxing every morning because of the, frustration that I have with this. I've been in this district 22 years, and it seems like not much has changed. We've been at the bottom, we've been near the bottom, and nothing has changed. And I know that they talked about changing the funding formula, and that's wonderful. That sounds like a delightful idea. In fact, a couple years ago, they had a work group that looked at that, and nothing got done. Nothing. And we're still in a situation, in fact, I would argue we're in a worse situation. And as I told Senator Lucero when we met at the Capitol, and our new Commissioner of Education, Dr. Willie Jett, we need relief now. We need it now. I love the idea of changing the funding formula, but we need that 4%, and we need it now. Our budget, our projected budget for next year shows a deficit of $2.7 million. That is 30 to 35 teachers or staff members, and the possibility of expanding the walk zone even more, and cutting some activities, probably middle school activities. We need help now. The governor's plan, which you can find, we'll put on our website tomorrow, but if you Google the One Minnesota plan, they mentioned it. You know, just to put in perspective what it would mean for STMA for next year, our platform, which we will hand out shortly to you, our STMA school board approved platform that they all have in front of them, is for 5% on the basic formula. That means every student in the state, all districts would get 5% on that basic formula, 5 and 5. What the governor has said is 4% in year one of the biennium, 2% in year two. To put it in perspective, the last few years we've got 2% each year. If we were to get 4%, and then for the special ed cross subsidy, the governor's plan is to fund that 50%. Our cross subsidy is $4.1 million. To put that in perspective, we could hire almost 55 teachers if we had the cross subsidy fully funded. The governor's plan right now is to fund 50% of that. So if you just do the math, lawyer's math, if you do the math, if you take 2%, a percent is about $500,000 for us. So 2% extra, because we usually get 2% a year, 2% extra would be about $1 million. Half of the cross subsidy is another $2 million. That would be $3 million. I just said our deficit for cutting next year is $2.7 million. And we're hopeful when our school board reviews the revised budget soon, that it won't be that much. But even if we get this windfall from the state, it's going to probably wipe out our projected deficit, and our kids, our staff members, everybody is in the same situation as they've been for the last few years. Enough is enough. We need to do something, and we need your help. And I know I see some yawns from our young learners because they can't stay home from school tomorrow, and there's not going to be a snow day. And our technology is not working. Some more frustration, but we choose to put our money in the classroom. When you leave, you will see our legislative platform that our school board approved. This has, what does this mean for STMA? So you can read it. It's broken up into 3 categories: funding, equity, and local control. So you can read, there's some examples on here so you can see exactly what it means. When you flip it over to the back, there's a video on the front and the back, a QR code that I've shared with legislators, and it really shows why STMA is in the position that we're in right now. So I urge you to watch it. It's very short, and it was just done this year. There's also QR codes to our legislative action webpage where you can go on there and look for action alerts, get more information. How to contact your legislators. You can follow the conversation on our legislative advocacy or action Facebook page, and then you can also sign up for our legislative action alerts. We have a strong group of parents, and if you would like to join that, we would love to have you. And before I forget, because this night would not be possible without them, I'd like them to stand up, members of the steering team for our legislative action team, and I'd like to thank them for their work this evening. So if you would like to join us with our legislative advocacy, there's a whole web page. The QR code is here, and there is there's a bunch of QR codes that actually work like our technology that you can learn more. We'd love to have you join us. We need your help, folks. We need everybody in this room. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends. We need everyone to be educated. We need to engage them, and we need them to advocate. This is the year we have over $17.25 billion surplus. We need that money. So thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate it, and thanks so much to our legislators. We appreciate it. Safe travels home.